Welcome back, skaters and haters. It's your local Trash Panda Slayer here. By the early 2000s, the Tony Hawk series had established itself as one of the biggest names in gaming. The series was only 4 games in, and had already made a huge mark on both gaming and the skateboarding sport. Kids everywhere not only owned the games, but were picking up skateboards en masse from their local Walmarts and bringing them home, only to bust their asses on concrete. The formula of banging out objectives in quick 2-minute bursts had gamers hooked. But by the 4th entry in 2002, things had changed. Gone was the 2-minute timer, and gamers were now free to find objectives and explore at their own pace. With open world games making a huge splash with the likes of GTA, this seemed like a given. Pro Skater 4 is beloved by fans and gained critical acclaim at the time, just like the previous 3 games. But not quite to the same extent. There was a slight decrease in scores from professional reviewers at the time, and that kinda persists even to this day, what with IGN and the like having a hard-on for Pro Skater 2 and 3. It also wasn't as big of a seller as the 2-minute trilogy in spite of the many quality of life improvements on display, so Neversoft took the formula they had set in stone with Pro Skater 4 and cranked it up to 11 with Tony Hawk's Underground. For much of the Tony Hawk faithful, this is the apex of the series and skateboarding games as a whole, adding a whole heap of new levels, customization options, and a mother-humping story into the mix. This game was the shit. I cannot put it into simple words how good this game and its sequel are. Tony Hawk's Underground is possibly in my top 10 favorite games of all time, it is so good. So we're gonna take a look at what makes the Tony Hawk's Underground duology an absolute masterpiece. Tony Hawk's Underground has always felt to me like the game Pro Skater 4 should have been. Pro Skater 4 is good, don't get me wrong, but it's the weak link between the 2-minute trilogy and the majesty of the Underground games. Underground's story is nothing truly epic, but for the first attempt at a story in a Tony Hawk game, it's honestly much better than you'd expect. We start off creating our character. The customization here is arguably the best in the entire series, and gaming as a whole. It's very robust and flexible. You can build yourself or attempt to recreate some other characters, but I went for a human version of my leather-bedecked persona. We then start off skating in a New Jersey ghetto with our childhood friend, Eric Sparrow. I never got it until now, but Eric Sparrow is a play on the name Tony Hawk, basically insinuating that he is merely a cheap pretender trying to ape Tony Hawk. For the first time in the series, we can get off our board and explore the levels on foot. The on-foot controls aren't the best, but they work. Some people don't like this addition to the series, but I've always loved it. I mean, when you're out skating in real life, you occasionally have to get off your board and look for things to skate, so it's actually very realistic, unlike being perpetually glued to the damn thing. I could do without the vehicle sections, the only part of Thug I would consider a negative, but thankfully they're brief. And all these levels are just pure gold. New Jersey is a shithole, land of stinky power plants and Bon Jovi, ugh. But it's the perfect starter level, and the dumpy aesthetic makes the succeeding Manhattan all the more exciting to skate on. We've also got San Diego, a prominent city in the realm of skateboarding in real life, the tropical beauty of Hawaii, complete with a batshit insane stunt over a running helicopter, my god, and a level set in Russia with armored tanks and military units everywhere. Oh, wow. Playing this in 2023 just hits differently, and not in a good way. You can also unlock levels from Pro Skater 2. This would mark the first time on home consoles that nostalgia for the older games would appear, and Pro Skater 2 was only a couple years old by 2003. It's almost as if though Neversoft knew they had timeless gold on their hands. To add to the customization from the previous couple of games, we now have Create a Goal and Create a Trick modes. This takes an already massive game and adds even more limitless content to it. You can even use it in custom parks. This game is heaven on a disc. Neversoft's soundtracks have always been fantastic, And Thugs is one of, if not the uncontested best of the series. It's that perfect blend of punk, metal, and underground hip-hop that suits the gameplay perfectly. Every song benefits the rebellious, anti-establishment nature of skating, and I like pretty much every song on the set list with the possible exception of the Kiss songs. It makes perfect sense given the unlockable Kiss concert level in the game, but Kiss has never really been my favorite 70s rock group, and it kinda clashes with the punk-heavy soundtrack a bit. But other than that, S-tier level soundtrack. Thug 1 is a masterpiece, and arguably the best skateboarding game of all time. Everything from the story, soundtrack, to the theoretically endless amounts of content is simply outstanding. Pro Skater 2 may have been my introduction to this series, but I cannot deny the majesty of Thug. It's an almost perfect game, and one I can't recommend enough to fans of extreme sports. A damn near perfect 10 out of 10. But how do you follow up perfection? Thug 2 is a little bit controversial. For some, it's the best in the entire series, but for others, it's what truly brought upon the downfall of the Tony Hawk series. There are a few aspects and aesthetic changes to Thug 2 that many longtime fans weren't so fond of, and it's safe to say that the series would start to decline from here on out. Sales would go down, as did Tony Hawk's overall reception within the gaming community. A lot of this can be pinned down to the yearly release schedule. Yeah, even back in the early 2000s, capitalism was ruining your favorite games, just to a far lesser extent than nowadays. Thug 2 more than has its fans, and I'm one of them, but I'm not gonna act like this sequel is perfect. It's got some damning maladies. For one, the story is much worse. After the story of a young skater's many trials and tribulations, Thug 2 ditches that for something more inspired by Jackass. Tony Hawk and Bam Margera kidnap us from our house, taunt us with a goddamn chainsaw, and then boom! You just got trolled, bitch. We're now partaking in the World Destruction Tour, a mixture of regular skate challenges mixed in with other crazy shit, such as riding on a mechanical bull, playing as a kid in a wheelchair, and other nonsense. It's a very wacky game. Not that the previous games were totally serious by any means, but this just cranks the wackiness up to 11. Another thing you'll notice is the worse visuals. They've gone for semi-cartoonish undertones instead of the total realism of the previous game. This, along with the wacky story on Bam getting more attention, just makes the game come across as puerile and desperately pandering to the Jackass crowd. If you turn off your brain, it's still fun. It's stupid with style, and to be honest, it's actually kinda funny. When it comes to the actual skating, it's more robust than ever, while not feeling bloated like in future games. I have mixed feelings on the other playable characters. It's better than the driving sections in 1, but still takes away from the experience. I absolutely love the way goals are set out in Thug 2. It's like a mixture between the 2-minute trilogy and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. You have no time limiter and can do goals whenever you want without having to go talk to people. I find this setup to be the absolute best of the entire series, and it makes the game extremely replayable. The level design is another high point for the series, and for me personally, it's got the best levels of any Tony Hawk game. The World Destruction Tour sees us shredded up through the apex of Tony Hawk level designs, whether it be the sunny Mediterranean delight of Barcelona, the harbors of Boston, the nightlife of New Orleans, or the beaches of Sydney. Almost every level in Thug 2 is a masterpiece. And that's not even mentioning Classic Mode, which lets us skate through and unlock classic levels from Pro Skaters 1 to 3. I miss when games had the self-respect to pay tribute to their past. You can just feel the passion and love put into a game when it practically gives you its previous games to toy around in within their latest title. Do I even need to mention the soundtrack? It's Neversoft Tony Hawk. Of course it's damn near perfect. This and Thug 1 have arguably some of the best licensed soundtracks in all of gaming. Thug 2 would also receive a PSP port a couple years down the line, and it's honestly the best version of the game, shockingly enough. Now, I don't have a PSP or an emulator to run the game yet, so I'm briefly going to be borrowing some footage for this segment, so please forgive me. This version has some additional levels such as Kyoto, Atlanta, and Santa Cruz, so the already amazing campaign is now even more meaty. To be honest, Thug 2's campaign wasn't that long, so this is a welcome addition. Sure, Create a Park takes a hit, but with all the extra levels and gameplay, Thug 2 Remix for PSP is possibly the definitive version of Thug 2. Thug 2 is a flawed masterpiece. Yes, the story has flung a hard right down juvenile junction. It focuses more on riding mechanical bulls and segways than actual professional skaters, and it can definitely be said from here on out that the series would be cursed with a fate of diminishing returns and declining scores from reviewers. American Wasteland is a damn good game, and with the benefit of hindsight, Project 8 and Proving Ground are better than people at the time may have thought, especially considering what Robo Moto would do to this series in the 2010s. But Thug 2 for many is the last truly great game in the series, and I'm gonna have to agree with that. For all its faults, it's a beefy, jam-packed game that will keep you hooked for days. An absolute must-play. The Tony Hawk's Underground duology is the purest essence of fun. Games with limitless customization, brilliant levels, and hours upon hours of crazy skating action. What's not to love? In the eyes of many, these are the two best skateboarding games of all time, and I'm gonna have to agree with that. The only games I could possibly say that are better than the Thug duology are the EA Skate games. The Tony Hawk series truly reaches apex with these two masterpieces, but as we all know, once you reach your peak, there's nowhere left to go but down. The Tony Hawk series would rather infamously begin its sad decline after Thug 2, with the next 3 Neversoft titles seeing diminishing returns and declining review scores. That might also be part of what makes the Thug games truly special in spite of some faults. They were the last truly great games in the Tony Hawk series, until the 1+2 remake that is, of course, and in my honest opinion, they were the absolute best in the entire series.